Hi there, this is lecture number 3, Unit 7, World War I. You've most likely already learned about World War I in great detail, beginning in 8th grade. You probably revisited World War I briefly in 9th grade here and there throughout your regional study of the 9th grade curriculum. Well, this year's focus on World War I will revisit the issues surrounding the Great War from the European and world viewpoint. So here we go. You should be on page 10 of your packet. Alright, so all that technology created during the Industrial Revolution is going to do more than just lead to the rise of cities, the building of factories, and new products. Oh yes, some of those new machines being built were created for use in warfare. World War I was truly one of the first mechanized wars, with a variety of new inventions that forever changed how wars were fought. But before we talk about all those weapons, we need an understanding of some of the events leading up to World War I. So let's do this thing. World War I is often referred to as the war to end all wars. It's also sometimes called the Great War. How do we know it was not the war to end all wars? All right, double negative, sorry. Well, duh. We've had other wars since then, right? Including a little one called World War II, but hey. World War I was fought from 1914 to 1918. There were so many factors leading up to World War I during the 1800s, which we've already learned was a very revolutionary time in Europe. Factors leading up to an event that take years to develop are sometimes referred to as long-term causes. Most people agree that there are 4 main long-term causes of World War I. We can use the acronym MAIN, M-A-I-N, yes, here I go again with my acronyms, but M-A-I-N, we can use this acronym to describe the 4 main causes. So here they are in a nutshell. M. This stands for militarism. It's spelled almost like it sounds. Militarism. M-I-L-I-T-A-R-I-S-M. Militarism. You know, I see the word military in there, you say? Right. Okay, so how smart? Yes, militarism means the building up of a country's military to prepare for war. Alright, so let's see. Militarism can be a scary thing for a country. If you discover that a neighboring country is suddenly building up their weapons supply, you might start to wonder what they have in store or what they have planned. For example, if you looked out your bedroom window one day and suddenly saw your neighbor putting barbed wire up around his fence with a large machine gun pointed in your direction, or perhaps a large artillery cannon attached to a tank pointed at your house, you know, you might feel, a little freaked out. And what you just might do to make sure your neighbor doesn't attack you is start building up your own little arsenal of weapons and point them right back at your crazy neighbor. So militarism was basically taking place all over Europe as country after country industrialized during the Industrial Revolution period. No country wanted to be left behind and have the weakest military. Countries like Great Britain, France, and the newly formed Germany are going to develop strong armies. This militarism is often referred to as one of the main causes of World War I because it caused quite a bit of competition and tension amongst nations in Europe. Alright, the A in Maine, alliances. We have already learned that there were several alliances that formed in Europe following the defeat of Napoleon and the subsequent Congress of Vienna. This resulted in the Concert of Europe Alliance. You know, an alliance is basically a group of friends or countries who agree to look out for one another in the event of a war. It's like having a buddy at school watch your back. Your friend agrees to help you out if someone hurts you. Well, in the years leading up to 1914, a delicate alliance system formed. These rival alliances created a delicate balance of power. The first of these was the Triple Alliance. The Triple Alliance included nations like Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. Italy later switched to the other side after the war began, by the way. Once World War I broke out, the Triple Alliance became known as the Central Powers and also included the Ottoman Empire. The other alliance in Europe was the Triple Entente Alliance. You know, I personally find this amusing because the word entente, which is spelled E-N-T-E-N-T-E, so that's the word over on your page, entente, It actually means triple alliance. I'm sorry, it actually means alliance in French. So both alliances technically had the same name, you know? Anyway, the Triple Alliance, or Triple Entente. Boy, Mrs. Molloy's making this really confusing today. Let me start again. The Triple Entente included countries like Russia, Great Britain, and France. And the way that you can remember that those nations belong to the Triple Entente is that, hey, like I said, Entente is a French word. France was one of the member nations. Okay, once the war broke out, the Triple Entente became known as the Allied Powers, and also included Italy, who'd switched sides, remember, and eventually the USA. Once the war began, allies rushed to each other's defense, leading to a chain reaction across Europe. And we demonstrated this in class using a food fight simulation, remember? Right. Okay, the next long-term cause of World War I was imperialism, the topic of my last lecture. European countries had been competing with one another for years to see who could control the most territory in the world. Great Britain had pretty much won that battle by 1914. In fact, the phrase, "the sun never sets" on the British Empire was often used to describe how large the British Empire had become leading up to World War I. You know, there really wasn't a time zone in the world that didn't contain a British territory or colony by 1914. Anyway, imperialism is defined as a policy in which one country takes control of the economic and political affairs of another country or region. You know, we've also said from last lecture, it's when a bigger, stronger country takes over a smaller or weaker nation and exploits them or takes advantage of them. This was a cause of World War I because nations became fierce rivals. Each nation wanted the most territory and resources and began intense competition with one another. This led to some ill feelings with one another and the potential for war to break out. All right, N, the final cause of World War I, nationalism. We learned last unit that nationalism is pride and devotion to one's country. But leading up to World War I, it was so much more than that. Nations had developed so much pride that they felt their own nation's needs were more important than those needs of other nations. Many countries were willing to fight to protect their own nationalistic interests, no matter what the effect that had on other nations. You know, we've already learned that nationalism can act in two ways. Nationalism can act like a bomb, or it can act like a magnet. Nationalism can either tear groups of people apart, or, like a magnet, nationalism attracts or brings groups of people together because of common traits or characteristics. Okay, so if you watched the Days That Shook the World video in class and participated in our food fight simulation, then you know that the start of World War I was a huge chain reaction. First, a Serbian teenager who lived in the Austro-Hungarian Empire, but who desired to see his fellow Serbians living in Austria-Hungary reunited with Serbia, all of this because of some intense nationalism amongst ethnic groups in the powder keg of Europe, which is what they called the Balkan region. It's going to technically start the chain reaction that led to war. This teenager was Gavrilo Princip, and he was a member of the terrorist group called the Black Hand Movement in Serbia. Princip is going to kill the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, a guy named Franz Ferdinand, along with Ferdinand's wife, Sophie. Austria was pretty peeved at Serbia after Ferdinand's death. So here's the first thing you need to write down. After Ferdinand's death, everyone waited to see what Austria would do. And because of existing rivalries and fears of being attacked, Austria is going to declare war on Serbia, a tiny little country in the Balkans. Russia, which considered itself a leader or big brother for all Slavic countries, including Serbia, began preparing to declare war on Austria, and they started to mobilize their troops. Germany, who supported Austria and had agreed to watch their back, they're going to declare war on Russia. Russia's ally, France, then threatened to declare war on Germany. And of course, they'd been waiting for an excuse to declare war on Germany ever since their defeat by Germany during the Franco-Prussian War. Remember from last unit? Anyway, Germany responded to this threat by actually declaring war, and they invaded France. However, in order to invade quickly, they went through a neutral country called Belgium. Remember Boo Boo in our food fight simulation? Great Britain, a friend to both Russia and France, and upset about Germany invading a neutral country, declared war on Germany. By August 6, 1914, Europe was engulfed in war. So, really, that's how it all started.